Today is Tuesday. Okay. Sorry I'm late. The dog's acting strange again. I don't know what's up with the dog. The dog is strange. Again. Same behavior. Unsure. Because we didn't know. He didn't get anything special. He did, however, get green beans, and we're starting to wonder if there's something in the green beans that he's like becoming reactive to, because he didn't used to react this way. But that's the only thing that he's had that he doesn't have like every day. He gets those like every once, twice a week. We give him some vegetables with his food for his coat. And normally we range from green beans, peas, chickpeas, that sort of thing. And this is the second week he's had green beans. But he never used to react this way to green beans. And so now we're like, what's going on? He's like stumbling around, looking up and like not comprehending anything anybody is saying. He peed his bed, which he hasn't done since he was a puppy. And like weirdly, it was like not even like a I have to go out and no one's letting me out sort of situation. Like Dave was petting him and he just got too relaxed and peed all over the place. And we were both like, that's strange. That's not something he normally does. So we're very concerned. um yeah, so he's out in the backyard right now, I think, because he keeps getting super energetic, and that's another thing that's quite unusual, is like whenever whenever Dave tries to look it up, it's like a bunch of people that are like, why is my dog lethargic? And Dave is like, well, our dog isn't lethargic. He's got like the energy of 5 dogs. Like it's not like, oh, my dog's tired. It's like, no, our dog is running around like we gave him a Red Bull. So unsure. Um, what's wrong with Scout? He's not like this. Like he hasn't been like this since. But like it's just very strange that he's doing this again this week when we were very careful to not give him anything special. So unsure what is causing that. Um, I've been going through a lot lately. Oh, there's been a lot going on. It's inhibiting my ability to make content and edit content and do things and cosplay. I'm here. I made it. Yay! I'm glad you're here. And I now I also I don't know because he's inside when this all started. We let him out to let off some energy or whatever, but it's not like he ever interacts with other dogs. So, also to everybody who sent stuff to the PO box, thank you very much. I have not been able to get to the PO box. It's a whole problem. Uh, I don't know if I want to talk about it at length because we got some book to read through. How about how about this? If you want an update on my life, we will get you guys your story content, and then I will tell you guys what's going on if you want to. Since I was late, I don't want to hold anybody up because I know people's got bedtimes, and we don't want to run over and Lady Eva can't stay or someone else can't stay, and then you don't get the end of your chapter. I don't think it'll take. It's not. It's not. It's the last chapter. It's the finale of Library of Souls. And in all honesty, I don't think it'll take us too long to get through. But I don't want to start talking about it and then lose track of time. Does that make sense? Because it's a lot. And I've been kind of not talking about it and not being upfront about it. Namely, because it's just kind of nice to have, like, my personal life be my personal life when I can make sure it's my personal life. And I can deal with it on my own. And, oh, thank you. But it's getting to be a lot, and it's holding up a lot of my content that I've been working on, and a lot of my recordings that I've been trying to do on my own time, and edit recordings of books that I'm doing for one of you as a commission, and it's affecting my life. And I've been having a lot of stress, and I feel like if I'm upfront about it now, you know why there's delays in content coming out and me getting some things that I need for certain cosplays to finish up. And because here we are at the end of Library of Souls, I was on track to do a cosplay from this book ages ago. And it has completely derailed the content. And I've kind of just not talked about it because I was hoping I could clear it up, but it's just all of the problems keep compounding. So I'll clear you up and update you guys on that after we get through this. And just so you know, in case I didn't mention it, this is the finale of Library of Souls. This is the last chapter, so we've made it the entire book through. So if you've been here from the beginning, you can safely tell everybody that you read a book this year. So your audiobooks count. Don't let anybody tell you any different. But if you haven't been keeping track, we've kind of tied up a lot of loose ends. Now, Call and his brother are stuck in a collapsed loop of Abaton. All of the Peculiars made it out and are currently trying to clean up Devil's Acre. Miss Peregrine and all the Embrins are safe. All the Peculiars have been relatively safe with the exception of Fiona. And that in itself is an achievement for the book. But upon all of this being cleared up, Jacob has made the decision to go home. Now that they have access to the Panlupticon, he can go home with pretty much no consequence. But that means he's also leaving all of his new friends, his Embrin, and his now ex-girlfriend Emma behind. So that's what you missed, Uncle Lee. And who is ready to dive into the last chapter of Library of Souls? I made this coffee too sweet. Too sweet. All right. Everybody get a good pillow or a cat, some manner of fluffy pet, and a beverage, and we will dive right in. Chapter 11. Sharon dropped us off at the same dark, rat-infested underjetty where we'd first met him. Stepping off his boat, there gave me a twinge of bittersweet nostalgia. I may have been terrified and filthy and in various exotic forms of pain every second of the last several days, but I would probably never have an adventure like this again. I would miss it. Not so much the trials I'd endured as the person I'd been while I endured them. There was an iron will inside me. I knew that now, and I hoped I could hang on to it, even as my life grew softer. "So long," Sharon said. "I'm glad I met you, despite all the endless trouble you caused me." "Yeah, me too." We shook hands. "It's been interesting." "Wait here for us," Miss Peregrine said to him. "Miss Bloom and I will be back within an hour or two." Finding my parents turned out to be easy. It would have been even easier if I'd still had my phone, but as it was, all we had to do was report to a police station. I was a known missing person, and within half an hour of giving an officer my name and sitting down on a bench to wait, my mother and father arrived. They were wearing rumpled clothes that had clearly been slept in. My mother's normally perfect makeup was a mess. My dad had a 3-day beard, and they were both holding stacks of missing posters with my face on them. I felt instantly and comprehensively awful for what I'd put them through. But as I tried to apologize, they dropped the posters and wrapped me in a 2-way hug, and my words were lost in the folds of my dad's sweater. Jake, oh my God, my little Jake, my mother cried. It's him, it's really him, my father said. We were so worried. How long had I been gone? A week? Something like that, though. It seemed like an eternity. Where were you? My mother said. What were you doing? The hug broke, but still I couldn't get a word in. Why did you run away like that? My father demanded. What were you thinking, Jacob? You gave me gray hairs, my mother said, then threw her arms around me a second time. My dad looked me over. Where are your clothes? What's this you're wearing? I was still in my black adventure clothes. Oops, that'd be easier to explain than 19th century clothes, though, and thankfully, Mother Dust had healed all the cuts on my face. Jacob, say something, my father demanded. I'm really sorry, I said. I would never have put you through this if I could have helped it, but everything's okay now. Things are gonna be fine. You won't understand, and that's okay, too. I love you guys. You're right about one thing, my dad said. We don't understand at all. But it's not okay, said my mom. You will give us an explanation. We'll need one, too, said a police officer who'd been standing by. And a drug test. Things were slipping beyond my control. It was time to pull the ripcord. I'll tell you everything, I said. But first, I'd like you to meet a friend of mine. Mom, Dad, this is Miss Peregrine. I saw my dad's eyes go to Miss P, then to Emma. He must have recognized her, because he looked like he'd seen a ghost. But it was okay. He would forget soon enough. Pleased to make your acquaintance, said Miss Peregrine, shaking both my parents' hands. You have a terrific son, just a top-notch boy. Not only is Jacob a perfect gentleman, he's even more talented than his grandfather. His grandfather, said my dad. How do you... Who is this bizarre woman? My mother said. How do you know our son? Miss Peregrine gripped their hands and stared deeply into their eyes. Alma Peregrine. Alma LaFay Peregrine. Now I understand you've had a dreadful time here in the British Isles. Just an awful trip. I think it would be best for everyone involved if you just forgot it ever happened. Don't you agree? Yes, my mother said, a faraway look in her eyes. I agree, said my father, sounding slightly hypnotized. Miss Peregrine had paused their brains. Fantastic. Wonderful, she said. Now cast your eyes upon this, please. She let go of their hands and drew a long, blue-spotted falcon feather from her pocket. And then a hot wave of guilt flashed through me, and I stopped her. "Wait," I said. "I don't think I want you to do it after all." "Are you sure?" She looked a bit disappointed. "It could get very complicated for you." "It feels like cheating," I said. "Then what will you tell them?" Emma asked. I don't know yet, but it doesn't seem right to just wipe their brains." If telling them the truth was selfish, it seemed doubly so to simply erase the need for an explanation. And what about the police? My extended family? My parents' friends? Surely they all knew I'd been missing, and for my parents to forget what had happened? It would have been a mess. "That's up to you," said Miss Peregrine. "But I think it would be wise to at least let me wipe the past 2 or 3 minutes, so they'll forget Miss Bloom and me." "Well, okay," I said. "So long as they don't lose the English language along with it." "I'm very precise," said Miss Peregrine. "What's all this about wiping brains?" said the police officer. "Who are you?" "Alma Peregrine," said Miss Peregrine, rushing over to shake his hand. "Alma Peregrine. Alma LeFay Peregrine." The officer's head dropped, and he was suddenly fascinated by a spot on the floor. "I can think of a few whites who might have done that too," said Emma. "Unfortunately, it only works on the pliable minds of normals," Miss Peregrine said. "Speaking of which," she held up the feather. "Wait," I said. "Before you do." I put out my hand for her to shake. "Thank you for everything. I'm really gonna miss you, Miss Peregrine." Miss Peregrine ignored my hand and hugged me. "The feeling is mutual, Mr. Portman. And I'm the one who should be thanking you, if it hadn't been for your Miss Bloom's heroism." "Well," I said, "if it hadn't been for you saving my grandfather all those years ago." She smiled. "Let's call it even." There was one goodbye left, the hardest one. I put my arms around Emma, and she squeezed back ferociously. "Can we write to each other?" she said. "Are you sure you want to?" "Of course. Friends keep in touch." "Okay," I said, relieved. At least we could. And then she kissed me. A big, full-on-the-lips kiss that left my head spinning. "I thought we were just friends," I said, pulling back in surprise. Yes," she said sheepishly. "Now we are. I just needed one to remember us by." We were both laughing, our hearts soaring and breaking at once. "Children, stop that!" Miss Peregrine hissed. "Frank," my mother said faintly, "who is that girl Jake's kissing?" "I haven't the slightest idea," my father mumbled. Jacob, who is that girl, and why are you kissing her?" My cheeks flushed. This is my friend Emma. We're just saying goodbye." Emma waved bashfully. "You won't remember me, but hello." "Well, stop kissing strange girls and come along," said my mother. "Okay," I said to Miss Peregrine. "I guess we better get on with it." "Don't think this is goodbye," Miss Peregrine said. "You're one of us now. You won't get rid of us that easily." "I sure hope not," I said, grinning despite a heavy heart. "I'll write you," Emma said, trying to smile, her voice cracking. "Good luck with whatever it is normal people do." "Goodbye, Emma. I'll miss you." It seemed so inadequate a thing to say, But at times like this, words themselves were inadequate. Miss Peregrine turned to finish her work. She raised the falcon feather and tickled my parents under their noses. "Excuse me," my mother said. "What do you think you're—" And then both she and my father had a sneezing fit, and while they were sneezing, Miss Peregrine tickled the police officer, and he had a sneezing fit too. By the time they were all finished, noses running and red in the face, Miss Peregrine and Emma had whisked out the door and were gone. "As I was saying," my dad said, picking up as if the last few minutes hadn't happened. "Wait, what was I saying?" "That we could go home and talk about all this later," I said hopefully. "Not before you answer some questions," the police officer said. We spent a few minutes talking to the police. I kept my answers vague, laced every sentence with an apology, and swore up and down that I hadn't been abducted, abused, or drugged. Thanks to Miss Peregrine's memory wipe, the officer had forgotten about making me take that drug test. When my parents explained about my grandfather's death and the troubles I'd suffered following it, the police seemed satisfied that I was just a garden variety runaway who'd forgotten to take his meds. They made us sign a few forms and sent us on our way. Yes, please, let's go home," my mother said. "But we will talk about this, young man, in depth." Home. The word had become foreign to me, some distant land I could hardly imagine. "If we hurry," said my dad, "we might be able to catch an evening flight." He had cemented his arm around my shoulder as if afraid I'd run away the moment he let go. My mom couldn't stop staring at me, her eyes wide and grateful, blinking back tears. "I'm okay," I said. "I promise." I knew they wouldn't believe me, and wouldn't for a long while. We went outside to hail a black cab. As one was pulling up, I saw two familiar faces watching me from a park across the street. Occupying the dappled shade of an oak were Emma and Miss Peregrine. I raised a hand goodbye, my chest aching. "Jake?" My dad was holding the cab door open for me. "What's the matter?" I turned my wave into a head scratch. "Nothing, Dad." I got into the cab. My dad turned to stare into the park. When I looked out the window, all I saw under the oak were a bird and some blowing leaves. My return home was neither triumphant nor easy. I had shattered my parents' trust, and piecing it back together would be slow, painstaking work. Considered a flight risk, I was watched all the time. I went nowhere unsupervised, not even for walks around the block. A complicated security system was installed in the house, less to stop thieves from getting in than me sneaking out. I was rushed back into therapy, subjected to countless psychological evaluations, and prescribed new, stronger drugs, which I hid under my tongue and later spat out. But I'd endured far worse deprivations than summer. And if a temporary loss of freedom was the price I had to pay for the friends I'd made, the experiences I'd had, and the extraordinary life I now knew to be mine, it seemed a bargain. It was worth every awkward conversation with my parents, every lonely night spent dreaming about Emma and my peculiar friends, every visit to my new psychiatrist. She was an unflappable older lady named Dr. Spanger, and I spent 4 mornings a week in the glow of her face-lifted perma-smile. She questioned me incessantly about why I'd run away from the island and how I'd spent the days after, that smile never wavering. Her eyes, for the record, were dishwater brown, pupils normal, no contacts. The story I concocted was a temporary insanity plea sprinkled with a dash of memory loss, every bit of which was totally unverifiable. It went like this. Frightened by what appeared to be a sheep-murdering maniac loose on Cairnholm, I cracked, stowed away on a boat to Wales, briefly forgot who I was, and hitchhiked to London. I slept in parks, spoke to no one, made no acquaintances, consumed no mood or mind-altering substances, and wandered the city for several days in a disoriented fugue state. As for the phone call with my father in which I'd admitted to being peculiar, what phone call? I couldn't remember any phone call. Eventually, Dr. Spanger chalked the whole thing up to a manic episode characterized by delusions, triggered by stress, grief, and unresolved grandpa issues. In other words, I'd gone a little nuts, but it was probably a one-time thing, and I was feeling much better now, thank you. Still, my parents were on pins and needles. They were waiting for me to crack, do something crazy, run away again. But I was on my best behavior. I played the role of good kid and penitent son like I was out to win an Oscar. I volunteered my help around the house. I rose long before noon and hung out in plain view of my watchful parents. I watched TV with them and ran errands and lingered at the table after meals to participate in the inane discussions they like to have about bathroom remodeling, homeowners association, politics, fad diets, birds. There was never more than a glancing allusion to my grandfather, the island, or my episode. It was pleasant, kind, patient, and in 100 ways not quite the son they remembered. They must have thought I'd been abducted by aliens and replaced with a clone or something, but they weren't complaining. And after a few weeks, it was deemed safe to bring the family around, and this uncle or that aunt would drop by for a little coffee and stilted conversation, and so I could demonstrate in person how sane I was. Weirdly, my dad never mentioned the letter Emma had left for him back on the island, nor the photo of her and Abe tucked inside it. Maybe it was more than he could deal with, or maybe he worried that talking about it with me might trigger a relapse. Whatever the reason, it was like it never happened. As for having actually met Emma and Millard and Olive, I'm sure he'd long ago dismissed that as a bizarre dream. After a few weeks, my parents began to relax. They bought my story and Dr. Spanger's explanations for my behavior. They could have probed deeper, probably, asked more questions, gotten a second or third opinion from another psychiatrist, but they really wanted to believe I was doing better, that whatever drugs Dr. Spanger had put me on were working their magic. More than anything, they wanted our lives to return to normal, and the longer I was home, the more that seemed to be happening. Privately, though, I was struggling to adjust. I was bored and lonely. The days dragged. I had thought, after the hardships of the past few weeks, that the comforts of home would be sweeter. But pretty soon even laundered sheets and Chinese takeout lost their luster. My bed was too soft. My food too rich. There was too much of everything, and it made me feel guilty and decadent. Sometimes, wandering mall aisles on an errand with my parents, I would think about the people I'd seen living in the margins of Devil's Acre and get angry. Why did we have more than we knew what to do with, while they had less than they needed to stay alive? I had trouble sleeping. I woke at odd hours, my mind looping scenes from my time with the Peculiars. Though I'd given Emma my address and checked the mailbox several times a day, no letters had arrived from her or the others. The longer I went without hearing from them, 2 weeks, then 3, the more abstract and unreal the whole experience began to seem. Had it really happened? Had it all been a delusion? In dark moments I wondered, what if I was crazy? So it was very much to my relief when a month after returning home, a letter finally arrived from Emma. It was short and breezy, just filling me in on the rebuilding process and asking me how things were going. The return address was a post office box in London, which Emma explained was close enough to Devil's Acre's Loop entrance that she could sneak into the present fairly often and check it. I wrote back the same day, and pretty soon we were exchanging 2 or 3 letters a week. As home grew more suffocating, those letters became a lifeline. I couldn't risk my parents finding one, so every day I stalked the mailman and dashed out to meet him as soon as he appeared at the end of our driveway. I suggested to Emma that we trade emails instead, which would have been safer and faster, and I filled several pages attempting to explain what the internet was, how she might find a public internet cafe and create an email address, but it was hopeless. She'd never even used a keyboard. The letters were worth the risk, though, and I came to enjoy communication by hand. There was something sweet about holding a tangible thing that had been touched and marked upon by someone I loved. In one letter, she included a few snapshots. She wrote, "Dear Jacob, things are finally getting interesting around here again. Remember the people on display in the basement, the ones Bentham said were wax models? Well, he was lying. He kidnapped them from different loops and was using Mother Dust powder to keep them in suspended animation. We think he'd been trying to power his machine using different types of peculiars as batteries, but nothing worked until you're hologassed. Anyway, Mother Dust confessed to having known about it, which explains why she was acting so strangely. I think Bentham was blackmailing her somehow, or threatening to hurt Ronaldo if she didn't help him. Anyway, she's been helping us wake everyone up and return them to their rightful loops. Isn't that just pure madness? We've also been using the Penloopticon to explore all sorts of places and meet new people. Miss Peregrine says it's good for us to see how other peculiars live around the world. I found a camera in the house and brought it along on our last excursion, and I've included a few of the photos I took. Bronwyn says I'm already getting good. I miss you like mad. I know I shouldn't talk like that. It only makes this harder, but sometimes I can't help it. Maybe you could come visit soon. I'd like that so much. Or maybe..." She'd scratched out "or maybe" and written, "Uh-oh, I hear Sharon calling my name. He's leaving now, and I want to make sure this letter gets into the post today. Write soon. Love, Emma." What was that "or maybe"? I wondered. I looked over the photos she'd included. A few lines of description had been penned on the back of each. The first was a snapshot of 2 Victorian ladies standing in front of a striped tent beneath a sign that read "Curios." On the back, Emma had written, "Miss Bobolink and Miss Loon started a traveling exhibit using some of Bentham's old artifacts. Now the peculiars are free to travel. They've been doing quite a business. Many of us don't know much about our history." And there's the photo. The next photo was of several adults descending a set of narrow steps to a beach in a rowboat. "There's a very nice loop on the shore of the Caspian Sea," Emma had written, "and last week Nim and some of the Imrans went on a boating trip there. Hugh and Horace and I tagged along, but stayed on the shore. We've all had enough of rowboats, thank you." And there's a picture. The last picture was of conjoined twin girls wearing giant white bows in their raven black hair. They were seated next to each other, their hands pulling aside a bit of their shirts to reveal a section of shared torso. "Carlotta and Carlita are conjoined," the back read, "but that isn't what's most peculiar about them. Their bodies produce an adhesive glue that's stronger than concrete when it dries. Enoch sat in some and attached his bottom to a chair for 2 whole days. He was so mad, I thought his head would pop off. I wish he could have been there." And these are the two twins. The book is bending strangely now that we are almost at the end. I replied right away, "What did you mean by 'or maybe'?" 10 days passed, and I didn't hear from her. I worried that she felt she'd gone too far in her letter and violated our just friends agreement and was stepping back. I wondered if she'd even sign her next letter, "Love, Emma." 2 little words I'd come to depend on. After 2 weeks, I began to wonder if there would even be another letter. Then the mail stopped coming altogether. I watched obsessively for the mailman, and when he didn't show for 4 days, I knew something was up. My parents always got tons of catalogs and bills. I mentioned, casually as I could, that it seemed strange we hadn't gotten any mail recently. My father mumbled something about a national holiday and changed the subject. Then I really started to worry. The mystery was solved during the next morning's session with Dr. Spanger, which, unusually, my parents had been invited to attend. They were tense and ashen-faced, struggling even to make small talk as we sat down. Spanger began with the usual softball questions. How had I been feeling? Any interesting dreams? I knew she was leading up to something big, and finally, I just couldn't take the suspense. "Why are my parents here?" I asked. "And why do they look like they just got back from a funeral?" For the first time ever, Dr. Spanger's perma-smile faded. She reached into a folder on her desk and pulled out 3 envelopes. They were letters from Emma. All had been opened. "We need to talk about these," she said. "We agreed there wouldn't be any secrets," my dad said. "This is bad, Jake. Very bad." My hands started to shake. "Those are private," I said, struggling to control my voice. "They're addressed to me. You shouldn't have read them." What was in those letters? What had my parents seen? It was a disaster, an utter disaster. "Who is Emma?" said Dr. Spanger. Who is Miss Peregrine? This isn't fair, I shouted. You stole my private letters, and now you're using them to ambush me. Lower your voice, my dad said. It's out in the open now, so just be honest, and this will be easier for all of us. Dr. Spanger held up a photograph, one Emma must have included in the letters. Who are these people? I leaned forward to look at it. It was a picture of two older ladies in a rocking chair, one cradling the other in her lap like a baby. I have no idea, I said curtly. And here's your picture. There's writing on the back, she says. It says, we're finding new ways to help those who've had parts of their soul removed. Close contact seems to work miracles. After just a few hours, Miss Hornbill was like a new Iambrine. Iambrine, she pronounced it. It's Imbrim, I corrected her, unable to help myself. The eyes are flat. I see. Dr. Spanger set the photo down and steepled her fingers beneath her chin. And what is an Imbrim? In retrospect, maybe it was foolish, but at the time I felt cornered, like I had no choice but to tell the truth. They had letters, they had photos, and all my flimsy stories had blown away in the wind. They protect us, I said. Dr. Spanger glanced at my parents. All of us? No, just peculiar children. Peculiar children, Dr. Spanger repeated slowly. And you believe you're one of them? I stuck out my hand. I'd like to have my letters now. You'll get them, but first we need to talk, okay? I retracted my hand and folded my arms. She was talking to me like I had an IQ of 70. Now, what makes you think you're peculiar? I can see things other people can't. From the corner of my eye, I saw my parents going increasingly pale. They were not taking this well. In the letters, you mentioned something called a Panlupticon? What can you tell me about that? I didn't write the letters, I said. Emma did. Sure. Let's switch gears then. Tell me about Emma. Doctor, my mother interrupted. I don't think it's a good idea to encourage. Please, Mrs. Portman. Dr. Spanger held up a hand. Jake, tell me about Emma. Is she your girlfriend? I saw my dad's eyebrows rise. I'd never had a girlfriend before. Never so much as been on a date. She was, I guess, but now we're sort of taking a break. Dr. Spanger wrote something down, then tapped her pen against her chin. And when you imagine her, what does she look like? I shrank back in my chair. What do you mean, imagine her? Oh, Dr. Spanger pursed her lips. She knew she'd messed up. What I mean is... Okay, this has gone on long enough, my father said. We know you wrote those letters, Jake. I nearly jumped out of the chair. You think I what? That's not even my handwriting. My dad took a letter out of his pocket, the one Emma had left for him. You wrote this, didn't you? It's the same writing. That was Emma, too. Look, her name's right there. I grabbed for the letter. My dad whipped it out of reach. Sometimes we want things so badly, we imagine they're real, Dr. Spanger said. You think I'm crazy, I shouted. We don't use that word in this office, Dr. Spanger said. Please calm down, Jake. What about the postmark on the envelopes? I said, pointing at the letters on Spanger's desk. They came all the way from London. My father sighed. You took Photoshop last semester at school, Jakey. I might be old, but I know how easy that sort of thing is to fake. And the photos? Did I fake those too? They're your grandpa's. I'm sure I've seen them before. By now, my head was spinning. I felt exposed and betrayed and horribly embarrassed. And then I stopped talking, because everything I said seemed only to further convince them I had lost my mind. I sat fuming while they talked about me like I wasn't in the room. Dr. Spanger's new diagnosis was that I'd suffered a radical break with reality and that these peculiars were part of an elaborate universe of delusions I'd constructed for myself, complete with fantasy girlfriend, because I was very intelligent. For weeks I'd managed to fool everyone into thinking I was sane, but the letters proved I was far from cured and could even be a danger to myself. She recommended I'd be sent to an inpatient clinic for rehabilitation and monitoring, with all due haste, which I understood to be psychiatrist talk for loony bin. They'd had it all planned out. It'll just be for a week or two, my father said. It's a really nice place, super expensive. Think of it as a little vacation. I want my letters. Dr. Spanger tucked them back into her folder. Sorry, Jake, she said. We think it's best if I hold on to them. You lied to me, I said, and leaping at her desk, I swiped at them. But Spanger was quick and jumped back with the folder in her hand. My dad shouted and grabbed me, and a second later, two of my uncles burst through the door. They'd been waiting in the hall the whole time, bodyguards in case I tried to make a break for it. They escorted me out to the parking lot and into the car. My uncles would be living with us for a few days, my mom explained nervously, until a room opened up for me at the clinic. They were scared to be alone with me, my own parents. Then they'd send me off to a place where I'd be someone else's problem. The clinic. Like I was going in to have an elbow bandaged. Call a spade a spade. It was an asylum, expensive though it may be. Not a place I could fake swallowing my meds and spit them out later. Not somewhere I could dupe doctors into believing my stories about fugue states and memory loss. They would dope me with antipsychotics and truth serums, and until I told them every last thing about peculiardom, and with that as proof that I was irredeemably insane, they'd have no choice but to lock me in a padded cell and flush the key down a toilet. I was well and truly screwed. For the next several days, I was watched like a criminal, a parent or uncle never more than a room length away. It's also the title of the live. Okay. Everyone was waiting for a call from the clinic. It was a popular place, I guess, But the minute there was an open room, any day now, I would be bundled off. "We'll visit every day," my mom assured me. "It's just for a few weeks, Jakey. Promise." Just a few weeks. Yeah, right. I tried reasoning with them, begging. I implored them to hire a handwriting expert so I could prove the letters weren't mine. When that failed, I reversed myself completely. I admitted to writing the letters, when of course I hadn't. Saying I realized now that I'd invented it all. There were no peculiar children. No Embrins, no Emma. This pleased them, but it didn't change their minds. Later, I overheard them whispering to each other and learned that in order to secure me a spot on the waiting list, they'd had to pay for the first week of the clinic, the very expensive clinic, in advance. So there was no backing out. I considered running away, snatching the car keys and making a break for it. But inevitably, I'd be caught, and then things would be even worse for me. I fantasized about Emma coming to my rescue. I even wrote a letter telling her what happened. But I had no way to send it. Even if I could have snuck out to the mailbox without being seen, the mailman didn't come to our house anymore. And if I'd reached her, what would it have mattered? I was stuck in the present, far from a loop. She couldn't have come anyway. On the third night, in desperation, I swiped my dad's phone. I wasn't allowed one anymore, and used it to send Emma an email. Before I'd realized how hopeless she was with computers. Sorry. So sorry. My throat is not doing well. We're almost done though. Before I'd realized how hopeless she was with computers, I'd set up an address for her. firegirl1901@gmail.com. But she was so firmly disinterested that I'd never written her there, nor even, I realized, bothered to tell her the password. A message in a bottle thrown into the sea would have had a better chance of reaching her, but it was the only chance I had. The call came the following evening. A room had opened up for me. My bags had been packed and waiting for days. It didn't matter that it was 9 o'clock at night or that it was a 2-hour drive to the clinic. We would go right away. We piled into the station wagon. My parents sat in front, and I was squashed between my uncles in the back, as if they thought I might try leaping from a moving car. In truth, I might have. But as the garage door rumbled open and my dad started the car, what little hope I'd been nurturing began to shrivel. There really was no escaping this. I couldn't argue my way out of it, nor run from it, unless I managed to run all the way to London, which would have required passports and money and all sorts of impossible things. No, I would have to endure this. But peculiars had endured far worse. We backed out of the garage. My father flipped on the headlights, then the radio. The smooth chatter of a DJ filled the car. The moon was rising behind the palm trees that edged the yard. I lowered my head and shut my eyes, trying to swallow back the dread that was filling me. Maybe I could wish myself elsewhere. Maybe I could disappear. We began to move, the broken shells that paved our driveway crunching beneath the wheels. My uncles talked across me, something about sports in an attempt to lighten the mood. I shut out their voices. I'm not here. We hadn't yet left the driveway when the car jerked to a stop. "What the heck is this?" I heard my father say. He honked the horn and my eyes flew open. But what I saw convinced me that I'd succeeded in willing myself into a dream. Standing there before our car, lined up across the driveway and shining in the glare of the headlights, were all my peculiar friends. Emma, Horace, Enoch, Olive, Claire, Hugh, even Millard, and out in front of them, a traveling coat across her shoulders and a carpet bag in her hand, Miss Peregrine. "What the hell's going on?" said one of my uncles. "Yes, Frank, what the hell is this?" said the other. I don't know," said my father, and he rolled down his window. "Get out of my driveway," he shouted. Miss Peregrine marched to his door. "We will not. Exit the vehicle, please." "Who the hell are you?" my dad said. "Alma LaFay Peregrine, Imbrin Council Leader Pro Tem and Headmistress to these peculiar children. We've met before, though I don't expect you'd remember. Children, say hello." As my father's jaw dropped and my mother began hyperventilating, the children waved. Olive levitated. Claire opened her back mouth. Millard twirled a suit of clothes without a body, and Emma lit a flame in her hand while walking toward my dad's open window. "Hello, Frank," she said. "My name's Emma. I'm a good friend of your son's." "See?" I said. "I told you they were real." "Frank, get us out of here," my mother screeched and slapped him on the shoulder. He seemed frozen until then, but now he laid on the horn and jammed his foot on the accelerator, and as shells spit from the back tires, the car lurched forward. "Stop!" I screamed as we sped towards my friends. They jumped out of the way, all but Bronwyn, who simply planted her feet, stuck out her arms, and caught the front of our vehicle in her hands. We slammed to a stop, the wheels spinning uselessly while my mother and uncles howled in terror. Bronwyn's stellar. The car stalled, the headlights died, and the engine went quiet. As my friends surrounded the car, I tried to reassure my family. "It's okay, they're my friends, they're not going to hurt you." My uncles passed out, their heads slumping onto my shoulders, and my mother's screams gradually faded to whimpers. My dad was jumpy and wide-eyed. "This is nuts, this is nuts, this is totally nuts," he kept muttering. "Stay in the car," I said, and reached over an unconscious uncle. I opened the door, crawled over him, and slid out. Emma and I slammed together in a dizzy, twirling embrace. I could hardly speak. How did you... I was tingling all over, certain I was still dreaming. "I got your electrical letter," she said. "My email?" "Yes, whatever you call it. When I didn't hear from you, I got worried. And then I remembered the machinated postbox you said you'd made for me. Horace was able to guess your password, and..." "We came as soon as we heard," said Miss Peregrine, shaking her head at my parents. "Very disappointing, but not entirely surprising." "We're here to save you," Olive crowed, "like you saved us." "I'm so glad to see you," I said. "But don't you have to go? You'll start aging forward." "Didn't you read my last few letters?" Emma said. "I explained everything." "My parents took them. That's why they freaked out." "What? How awful!" She glared at my parents. "That's stealing, you know. In any case, there's nothing to worry about. We made an exciting discovery." You mean I made an exciting discovery? I heard Millard say. All thanks to Perplexus, it took me days to figure out how to get him back to his loop using Bentham's convoluted machine, during which time Perplexus should have aged forward. But he didn't. What's more, his gray hair even turned black again. That's when I realized something had happened to him while he was in Abaton with us. His true age had been reset. When the Imbrans collapsed the loop, it wound back his clock, so to speak, so that his body was exactly as old as it looked, rather than his actual age of 571. And it wasn't just Perplexus's clock that got wound back, Emma said excitedly, but all of ours, everyone who was in Abaton that day. Apparently, it's a side effect of loop collapse, said Miss Peregrine. An extremely dangerous fountain of youth. So, this means you won't age forward? Ever? Well, no faster than you, Emma said and laughed. One day at a time. That's amazing, I said, overjoyed but struggling to take it all in. Are you sure I'm not dreaming? Quite sure, said Miss Peregrine. Can we stay a while, Jacob? Said Claire, bouncing up to me. You said we could come any time. I figured we'd make a holiday of it, Miss Peregrine said before I could reply. The children know almost nothing of the 21st century, and besides, this house looks much more comfortable than Bentham's drafty old rat trap. How many bedrooms? We have 5, I think. Yes, that'll do. That'll do just fine. But what about my parents and my uncles? She glanced at the car and waved a hand. Your uncles can be memory wiped with ease. As for your parents, I believe the cat's out of the bag. As they say, they'll have to be watched closely for a time, kept on a short leash. But if any two normals can be brought round to our way of seeing things, it's the parents of the great Jacob Portman. And the son and daughter-in-law of the great Abraham Portman, said Emma. You knew my father? My dad said timidly, peeping up at us from the car window. I loved him like a son, said Miss Peregrine, as I do Jacob. Dad blinked, then slowly nodded, but I don't think he understood. They're gonna stay with us for a while, I said. Okay? His eyes widened and he shrank away. I think you'd better ask your mother. She was curled in the passenger seat with her hands blocking her eyes. I said, Mom? Go away, she said. Just go away, all of you. Miss Peregrine leaned down. Mrs. Portman, look at me, please. Mom peeked through her fingers. You aren't really there. I had too much wine at dinner, that's all. We're quite real, I assure you, and this may be hard to believe now, but we're all going to be friends. My mom turned away. Frank, change the channel. I don't like this show. Okay, honey, my dad said. Son, I think I better, And then he shut his eyes, shook his head, and rolled up the window. Are you sure this isn't gonna, melt their brains? I asked Miss Peregrine. They'll come around, she replied. Some take longer than others. Oh God, that was so loud. I hit one glass with another glass. Okay. We walked back toward my house in a group, the moon bright and rising, the hot night alive with wind and cicadas. Bronwyn pushed the dead car along behind us, my family still in it. I walked hand in hand with Emma, my mind reeling from all that had happened. One thing I don't understand, I said. How did you get here? And so quickly? I tried to picture a girl with a mouth in the back of her head and a boy with bees buzzing around him getting through airport security. And Millard, how had they snuck him onto a plane? How did they even get passports? We got lucky, Emma said. One of Bentham's rooms led us to a loop just 100 miles from here. Some appalling swamp, Miss Peregrine said. Crocodiles and knee-deep muck. No idea what my brother wanted with the place. Anyhow, from there I managed to effect our exit into the present. And then it was just a matter of catching 2 buses and walking 3½ miles. The whole trip took less than a day. Needless to say, we're tired and parched from our journey. We had arrived on my front porch. Miss Peregrine looked at me expectantly. Right, there are sodas in the fridge, I think. I fumbled the key into the door and opened it. Hospitality, Mr. Portman, hospitality, Miss Peregrine said, breezing past me into the house. Leave your shoes outside, children. We're not in Devil's Acre anymore. I stood holding the door as they tramped inside, muddy shoes and all. Yes, this will do nicely, I heard Miss Peregrine say. Where's the kitchen? What should I do with the car? Bronwyn said, still standing in its rear bumper. And, the normals? Could you put them in the garage? I said, and maybe keep an eye on them for like a minute or two. She looked at Emma and me, then smiled. Sure thing. I found the garage door opener and hit the button. Bronwyn rolled the car and my dazed parents inside, and then Emma and I were left alone on the front porch. You sure it's okay that we stay? Emma said. It'll be tricky with my family, I said, but Miss P seems to think we can make it work. I mean, is it okay with you? The way we left things was... Are you kidding? I'm so happy you're here. I can barely speak. Okay, you're smiling, so I suppose I believe you. Smiling? I was grinning like a fool. Emma took a step towards me. I slipped my arms around her, and we held each other, my cheek pressed to her forehead. I never wanted to lose you, she whispered, but I didn't see a way around it. A clean break seemed easier than losing you in slow motion. You don't have to explain. I understand. Anyway, maybe we don't have to now. Be just friends if you don't want to. Maybe it's a good idea, though, I said, just for a while. Oh, she said quickly, disappointed. Sure. No, what I mean is... I pulled away gently, looking at her. Now that we have time, we can go slow. I could ask you out to the movies. We could go for walks. You know, like normal people do. She shrugged. I don't know too much about what normal people do. It's not complicated, I said. You taught me how to be peculiar. Maybe now I can teach you how to be normal. Well, as normal as I know how to be. She was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed. Sure, Jacob. I think that sounds nice. She took my hand, leaned towards me, and kissed me on the cheek. Now that we have time. And it occurred to me, standing there, just breathing with her, quiet settling around us, that those might be the three most beautiful words in the English language. We have time. And there's one last picture. And that is the end of Library of Souls. We finished the whole book. Aren't we proud of us? I'm proud of us. I didn't know what you were talking about when you were like, who who broke it? And I was like, who broke what? The live? Is the live not connecting? But the light was still green. So I was like, who broke what? I was like, I'm sure I'll find out if I wait. Yay, what did I miss? Oh, Jacob went back home, and his parents did not believe that he just ran away because he was saying some weird stuff. So they started sending him to a therapist, and then he was trying to be as normal as possible, but they were still suspicious because he kept getting the mail every day. Man, can't even get your own mail anymore without people thinking it's suspicious. And then they went and found the mail and read the mail and found him his letters, thought he was delusional and he was writing to himself. And then you came in. That's what you missed on Glee. Oh, I'm sure we're going to continue with Miss Peregrine's. Everybody seems to like it, so we're going to move on to the next one. So that'll be a fun time, won't it? I hope I'm not getting sick again. I started coughing halfway through that chapter. I didn't even feel sick. I don't feel sick. I don't know what I got so hoarse for. So we're going to keep on trucking. Am I okay? Health-wise, sure. I think so. I don't know what happened there. I just started coughing. It got really dry. Maybe it was because I'm pitching my voice up unconsciously a lot of the time, and I have to stop doing that. The coffee was helping more than the water, actually. I should talk at a comfortable register. This is my baseline. I keep pitching my voice up because I'm always afraid that you guys can't hear me unless I pitch my voice up. So sometimes for some of the characters that I'll pitch my voice down to sort of offset all the times that I have to go up a register. Claire, Olive, Emma, hardest. The hardest voices to do. I have to prep for those. This is my baseline. And sometimes when I have to do like a whole bunch of female dialogue in the one chapter, it starts to really... And that's normally why I have water and a caffeinated beverage over here. And then I ran out of water. Okay, good. I like doing voices for the characters, but sometimes when the chapters are running and there's a lot of female dialogue all at once or big monologues with a lot of the higher pitched characters, whenever I pitch my voice up like this, it's already like kind of a struggle. And when I go even higher, like when I'm doing Olive and Claire, whoa, just, just cut my throat. It is hot. I have that little plate warmer over there. And I am drinking the coffee that you got me. Thank you very much. The fudge is really good. I think I added a little bit too much caramel syrup to this. I wanted it to taste kind of sweet. But I think when I made it, I was like, oh man, I made this too sweet. This is too sweet for me. And then my throat started acting up, so I think actually the extra sugar is helping it. So I think we're doing better because I fucked up. Doing fine. But thank you very much for keeping me caffeinated. Um Me. I'm glad you got to make it too. Happy anniversary. Glad you got to sit in at least hear the end. That's not some newfangled Nazi dog whistle, is it? Please don't do that. I'm not for sure on that, but I'm gonna look it up later. It's giving three parentheses energy, and I don't. I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm just saying I'm gonna look it up later. Ill. Okay, that was a capital I. Okay, no, I'm not. I hope I'm not. Jesus, if I get another sore throat, I'm gonna be so mad. I thought it was like, the three parentheses, like they, anyway, good to know that it's not, because I did not read that correctly. This is why y'all are here, because I'm too far from the camera, and I don't have great eyes. Okay, I was like, I should stop vaping as long as I'm doing this. Okay. Time to catch all up. I am very sorry I have not been able to get to the post office for the past several days. I was in a car wreck on the 10th. I'm fine, obviously. The other person is fine, uninjured. My front bumper is off of my car, and it is currently in a tow yard. Insurance just got back to me today. They found the other party at fault, so I'm going to have to go through their insurance to get my car fixed, because I can't afford to use my own deductible on that. I don't have an extra $500 laying around to get my car fixed in a timely manner, which is impacting pretty much everything, transportation-wise. I can use Dave's car for the time being, but while I'm using it, he can't use it. And as you all know, my job, I put a lot of miles on my car. And so now I'm just doing the same with not my car, which is something we like to keep to a minimum. I normally make cosplay content. I haven't though. I'm catching everybody up on why I haven't been making it lately, but normally I do live reads for all my lives. Thank you for stopping by. Right now we're reading through Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. We just finished the last chapter of Library of Souls, Book 3. Thank you for showing interest. Yeah, it's a good book. We were all really enjoying it. And we just finished the third one, so we're probably going to start with the fourth one next week. We do this every Tuesday at 8 Central. Yeah, 8 Central. So yeah, if you ever want to join us again, you can feel free. And I've heard of those. I gotta schedule more personal time for reading it. My TBR is ridiculous. Oh no, yeah, I know I can get compensation for the hours I lose. Same. Oh, and get bumped because I'm never gonna get an ending to that story, and I know that. Name of the Wind, I've recommended to people in this live before, and I'm like, if you ever want to hurt your own feelings with the fact that you started a book that you're probably never gonna get the ending of, Name of the Wind, best story. Heartbreaking. Heartbreak yourself. Read Name of the Wind, but impeccable story. Love it. Will always swear by it. And then I have not read any of the other. Well, okay, no. What was the spin-off with? Oh my God, what's her name? She does. Real Crazy likes to put things in places that they belong. Cannot remember her name. It's been ages since I have read that. Easy. Oh, that makes me super happy. That is the best news I've gotten in like a month. So no, I have not. But I'm supremely interested. I will have to do that. I can't use my phone to look it up. It'll delete this line. I'm going to look it up right after this, though, because I love that series. So you have good taste. Everybody read Name of the Wind if you want to hurt your own feelings. I've said it before. I'll say it again. It's a great fucking story. Swear by it. Releasing in November. If you are messing with me right now, I'm going to be so upset. I'm going to be so upset if you're messing with me right now, but I'm going to look that up immediately after this. Where was I? I was going to update you on some things. Right, the front of my car is hanging off, so I have to get that fixed. So I wasn't able to get to the post office. Thank you to everybody who's been sending me things in the P.O. box. I love and appreciate you, and I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I'm going to see if I can use Dave's card and take it tomorrow. Also, just some other notes of things. I have not been getting to the re-records of some of the YouTube content for the backlog of all the live readings. And I have, more on a personal note, not been able to edit some of the content that I have recorded for Grandmaster. Namely because I've been dealing with a lot of work stress. I've been putting off talking about it because it's very stressful, but our store went into default, which is bad. It means that a health inspector came and we scored low. Very low. Like someone's getting fired, level low. And the only reason that our GM, the manager who pretty much ensures that I'm not fired just on grounds of being who I am, his job is in jeopardy. So we have to score pretty much impeccably well on our next inspection, which is in December. So we're all sort of really on edge, and because of that, I'm not even gonna censor this because, in all honesty, y'all should know. Our district manager is a white supremacist named Nate Carroll. He is involved in Evropa. He is disturbed. He's not nice to people like me or other people that fall in the LGBTQ demographic. Basically, if you're not white, blonde, and straight, cishet, male, female, he doesn't care about you. And he doesn't want you there. Is pretty much where we're at. And he's been there every single day. And by his actions, he doesn't care if he misgenders trans people, if he talks down to people of color, talks down to women. Pretty much anybody who isn't a white man, he's going to talk down and treat you like shit. But he does it in a very clever way. Pretty much to where you couldn't get him on it. Like, he'll misgender trans employees, but not in front of them. Only behind their back. And then he'll be like, oh, I messed up, I'm so sorry. And it's a very... Yeah, you have to, in our state, you have to agree to be recorded. You can't record somebody. It's not admissible evidence unless both parties are aware. So, there's that. So I've been on edge every single day for the past month. And I know that doesn't necessarily impact you guys. It does impact my ability to function and stay mentally above board, which I'm managing to do, struggling to do, but managing it. And it's just severely impacted my motivation. So, and I've somehow been flagged for bullying. It wasn't my intention to bully anyone. Um, all this is public knowledge. Um, he's been doxxed before, so like I don't even know who would be in here that would report me. Um, anyway, so I'm kind of struggling to stay afloat. So hopefully you guys can understand why I've been a little bit more isolated and a little bit more thank you. um I'm trying my best. I cosplay plans and it makes me really nervous because we've also been hiring a lot of people in my position. And it's almost like, and I will go ahead and state for the record very plainly, I think I know what's happening, is what it feels like and what makes me feel scared is that all of the people, all of the new hires are, to my knowledge, straight white men. And we're starting to have like an egregious amount of drivers to the point where it's driving up labor crazy. Because we'll have 15 drivers on like an average. But that's way too many. We could survive on half that. And it feels like, and who's in charge of hiring is this district manager. And I do work for Domino's. And it feels very much like he anticipates our GM is being displaced and that he is going to cull the herd of all the people he doesn't like if Duffy gets canned. Is what it feels like. I'm not saying that's what it is. I can't definitively say that. Allegedly. But I feel like we can all look at something that looks like a duck, acts like a duck, and quacks like a duck, and pretty much say, hey, I'm pretty sure that's a fucking duck. And that's what it feels like. And it feels like my job's in danger. And so finances have been out of whack, and I just adopted 2 kittens, and now I'm kind of panicky. And I'm really hoping we nail this. I'm really hoping we nail this inspection. Like, we have to. And if we do, then everything will be fine. I love my job. I don't want to stop working there. I love my general manager. And he's made it a very safe environment, a very welcoming environment for LGBTQ people and people of color. And we have a very diverse, like, store, I feel like. And we have a gay kitchen manager, a black kitchen manager, about 4 black drivers. I'm like worried that they're all gonna lose their jobs. We have like 2 or 3, in the LGBTQ spectrum that I'm worried that are gonna lose their jobs. And I'm like, feels like you're really stacking the deck to ensure that half of the staff isn't here and that you're not even going to suffer a lapse in labor is what it feels like. And it's scaring me. Oh, gee, my Puma is still there. Yeah, your Puma. Robert's still there. We love Robert. Robert. Um, I I don't know. It feels like he's sabotaging a lot of people. And he's already like also it's very plain which managers he doesn't like because he keeps like demeaning them in front of their employees. And namely, it's the two female employees and the black manager. Our two female managers. Sean and Chris, no problem. Never heard him say a bad word about them. But my other two female managers, I watched him put one of them down in front of three new employees the other day. And then undermine exactly what she was telling them to do. He was like, don't do that. And I was like, someone needs to say something, right? Like, someone needs to say something. It feels like a weird coup is happening, and I don't like it. I have taken some steps. I will not dictate what those steps are. But it's causing me an immense amount of anxiety. I'm having sleeping problems, but it's okay. We're doing our best. And you know what? If Domino's stops serving me, I stop serving Domino's. That's just how it is. If I gotta find a new job, I gotta find a new job. And that's kind of where my brain's at, is I'm like, we have accepted this as a possible outcome. And you are gonna be fine. Domino's might not be, but you are. You're gonna be fine. And that's kind of where I'm at. Anyway, now you're all caught up on the sad direction my life has taken of late. I have no car. It could be more sad though, so we're not even going down that road. We're doing fine. We're dealing with things as they come, one day at a time. We're taking steps to ensure our safety, and we're trying to treat ourselves with compassion in this time of crippling mental health. I am, except for the fact that I ran out of water while I was doing the live. So now I'm not hydrating. But I do have my caffeine over here. I'm gonna get more water after this live. Oh, I'm a morning person. But it's MOUR. It's one of my favorite mugs. But yeah, we're gonna make it through. We're gonna do this. I am conserving my finances right now. I do have some cosplays that I do want to get into eventually when I can make sure that my job is secure and I'm not going to need that money, to survive. But once I get to the point where I have disposable income again, I do have Sharon pretty much half planned out. I have some of the stuff for it. I have some things that I still need to get on my wish list, but I got coffee covered. That's true. Thank you all for supporting my caffeine addiction. Yes, pronouns are he, him, or they, them, whichever you prefer. I am a trans man. I'm on testosterone, and that about sums it up. Thank you for asking. But yeah, I have some of the stuff. It is kind of what I prefer. He, him, or what I normally... What was that? Some bug on my light. Some bug on my ring light distracted me for a second. I got it off. I don't know where it fell, though. That's a problem for later. But he, him is generally what I tell people. And then... Where was I? Sharon. I wanted to cosplay Sharon, and I am getting all the stuff. I still have a hood and a jacket that I want for Sharon, And optional is the flippers. I want to do the feet shot. Which is a crazy thing to want, because I'm pretty sure he just has giant bird feet, but I was going to make those flippers into something crazy. So those are the things that I'm still looking to get, but I have the wig, the jacket, and the hood, everything. I might get some other accessories for Sharon if I can get it, but Sharon, I have all the stuff for Death Parade, I just haven't gotten my act together, so that'll be... See, that's the thing, is that's why I don't make a lot of, like, I guess, stuff about my trans journey. Is one, everyone has a different journey, and two, I'm not sure how I would go about describing mine. Um, I don't know what people would want to know about. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, because to me, there's never like a cookie cutter sort of. Every trans person is different, views their identity different, views their experiences as different, and has had their own interactions with families and relationships that create their experience. But what I will say is that if you're experimenting with other pronouns and you feel like you're questioning and you try it out and you become more comfortable, feel more firmly in your own skin, it might be worth looking into. Because my experience, I did not super know what was wrong with me. I thought I was depressed for most of my life. I was like, oh, it's just my depression. It's just my... In I had been sent to multiple psychiatrists all through my childhood. I have been diagnosed with a lot of different things, and none of them were really a whole lot of accurate. My mom had like the equivalency of like, it's not even necessarily that she wanted me to get help, it's that she wanted something to be wrong with me so she could point and see, it's not my fault. And so I got sent to multiple psychiatrists, and if she didn't like the outcome from one psychologist, she would take me to another, put me on a lot of different meds. And so I grew up with a very disillusioned view of myself and what was actually wrong with me. I will say that, without going into too much detail. And when I finally started to question it, and I found my own talk therapist, not someone who was going to put me on pills, someone who was going to help me without my mother cutting the check for it. And when I finally started on that journey, I realized I was deeply uncomfortable with myself on a level that I could not describe. And so many of us are taught not to explore gender dysphoria when we're young. It's almost like you're conditioned to. Especially with gendered toys and clothes and colors. Everything is gendered. Barbie dolls are for girls. That means nothing. Those societal inductions mean absolutely nothing. Throw all of that out the fucking window. And then if you start on that journey with a clean slate and really take the time to get to know yourself, and if your body, the way you look, your gender your. If that's not who you are, and you know it, and you let yourself feel it, and it feels comfortable, and it feels good, then you might be. Because that's what happened to me. Is the first time I met a trans person, I didn't know that being trans was a thing. It was something that you could do. And when I first met a trans person and I asked when they transitioned, and the answer was earlier than I had hoped. And my first thought, before I even dissected how I wanted to feel about it, I felt disappointed. And my first conscious thought was, it's too late for you. And then I suppressed it for another several years. Because I didn't think it was for me. It is never too late. I can say that now. Even when I thought it was too late, and I finally opened up with my therapist, and my therapist, because my therapist, that was one thing I never shared with my therapist, that feeling. They brought it up to me. They brought up gender dysphoria to me. And when I finally opened up about it, they were like, just start experimenting. I was like, no, I can't. You don't understand. I can't. It's too late for me. But it wasn't. It wasn't. And when I got my first binder, when I started testosterone, I felt so much better. Impossibly better. To the point where I was like, I don't know how much of the things I've been diagnosed with was actually just dysphoria. And now I've been unpacking that. All the things I was told that I might have growing up by other psychiatrists, I've recently gone to a specialist that specializes in that field, been tested, and I don't have ADHD. I don't have autism. That was wild. I don't even have clinical depression. I'm just trans. And those manifested in ways that it was hard to catch, because it's kind of like being sick, right? If you just list one symptom, and that's the only thing that doctor wants to pay attention to, well, then that's the only thing you're going to catch. Right? If you're running a fever, oh, you have a cold. So, oh, your throat's sore, you have a sore throat. But if you look at all those symptoms together, I'm running a fever, I have chills, I have diarrhea, I've got a sore throat, I've got spots on the back of my throat. Oh, well, then now we can narrow it down a whole lot more because we have more information that we're not ignoring. But after I started really delving into that and really getting to know myself more, letting myself be myself, I started functioning was suddenly a whole lot easier. I still have anxiety. That I figured out is actually real. that I do have generalized anxiety disorder. That's still a thing. But I don't get, I don't have hard mood swings anymore. I'm able to deal with stress a lot easier. I have way less. If you go to therapy, they call it your um, self critical voice, but a lot of self hatred like that cleared up. I still have bad days. I still have days where I look at myself and I beat myself up for one reason or another. A lot of that is conditioning. A lot of that is maybe some PTSD, some errant parenting style that my mom shouldn't have employed. But overall, I look at myself and I get told all the time by some people whose opinions I don't want or don't care about. So, oh, you were so much more attractive as a woman. Look at what you've done. But I look at myself and I don't see that. I don't care if I'm the ugliest motherfucker alive. I feel like me. Yeah, I have acne, and yeah, I got. My eyebrows are so much worse. The bones in my face have changed, especially in my jawline, as I make my face look a little bit fatter. I don't care. I don't care. I feel so much better because I look in the mirror and I see myself for who I am. I used to have dreams where I was male, or I was one of my male friends. And I didn't know why. I was like, that's so weird. I was Kyle in my dreams last night. It was so wild. Wasn't that wild? I wonder why. I wonder why. Everyone's journey is different. But if you start experimenting, if you feel different, then if you try and you feel better with a new name, with he, him pronouns, with your hair short, or whatever, chase that. Chase what makes you feel comfortable, regardless of definitive gender lines or definitions. Chase what makes you feel comfortable and what makes you feel like you. Doesn't matter if it's male, female, non binary. Chase what makes you feel comfortable. I dreamed a few months ago while walking around a complex and someone said something about my hearing. I'm sorry you had this crazy dream. I often have wild dreams like that, mostly including my mom or something like that. But that's not uncommon. I've had dreams like that, where now, mainly since whenever I have really bad mental health days, I've lately started having nightmares about being at work and this person who's been making my life terrible, outing me to a customer that is not friendly and going into a dangerous area and getting attacked, because that is not uncommon among delivery drivers. And that scares me. And I've had nightmares about that. I've had nightmares about my mom. And that's okay. The important thing is to sit with those feelings. Because I'm not going to say this journey is easy if you choose to pursue it. It's not. There are uncomfortable situations. Now, I've never been in a situation where anyone treated me with any sort of violence or anything like that. I will say that. Not because I was trans, at least. For other reasons, sure. But not because of that. Go at this with the undisguised notion that before anything else, before vitriol, before hatred, before any sort of violent response, their first response is discomfort. You make them uncomfortable before anything else. And there's some power in that. Because to make someone uncomfortable, they have to view you as a threat. So just know that. And that makes me feel like I have a little bit more control on some days when those thoughts really get to me. But your journey, it's up to you. And I wish you the best of luck. You're valid. Yeah, Lady Eva, you're right. Your journey is valid. You're valid. And I hope that wherever your journey leads to makes you happy. That's part of it. You just gotta vibe with where you're at. You sit with feelings that make you feel slightly uncomfortable. Dissect those feelings. Really sit with them. Don't try and explain them away or get rid of your inner critical voice for a moment and just really sit with those feelings and see how you feel. The pursuit of happiness is in the Constitution. Thank you, Lady. Stellar wrap up for this. And this has been a wild ride. Thank you for... This has been Mental Health Corner. Thank you for joining me tonight. We'll start the next Miss Peregrine's book next week if everything pans out okay. Tons of mom hugs for all of you. Thank you for the mom hugs. We need all the mom hugs. And the corner where we wonder what mental health is. That is exactly what that's for. We do our best. We do our best around here. I hope you all join me next week at 8 p.m. Central. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here and get the stream set up. We're going to go play some vidya games. I don't know what vidya games. Death's Door. We got to find... What health? Reality isn't real. Reality is just that dark segment right above your fridge to where it fits in between the countertops. That dark area that you never see or witness because it is too far shadowed, especially when the lights are off. We don't... No cat facts! Oh, we didn't do cat facts. Hold on. Sorry. Yeah, we gotta do cat facts really quick. Every week I read you a little bit about a different breed of cat, and so we're going through all of them. Papam, we're going through Balinese. Welcome to Night Vale Sounding Sentence. I've been listening to a lot of Night Vale that was probably Night Vale inspired. Okay, after Cat Facts, we're going to play video games. Probably finishing up Death's Door, so I hope you join me for that in the Discord. Please talk like a normal person. Thank you. Okay. Balinese. Although they are 100% American, Balinese were named after the graceful movement of dancers from the Isle of Bali and the parent Siamese cat. The Balinese is a long-haired version of the Siamese cat, a natural spontaneous mutation. Aside from hair length, the cats are nearly identical. Like the Siamese, these cats love their families and have been known to risk their lives, even fighting off armed burglars to protect them. Balinese cats are very intelligent. They can open doors and drawers with ease, but once they are trained, they remember, even if they don't always obey, the words no and come here. These cats are talkers and alternate between being extremely active and surprisingly sedentary. Balinese cats are also demanding, but are so lovable and affectionate that their owners will forgive them for nearly anything. Balinese are soft and lovely to look at since the longer hair forms an aureole of softness around their limber bodies. According to legend, the aureole was referred to as a veil, and the cat's body was said to move like that of a Balinese dancer surrounded by her swirling silken veils. Today, it's easy to see that every move these cats make is dance-like. They're truly grace in motion. And I love Balinese cats. They're so pretty. They're so pretty. If you're wondering. You know, the ones with the little black faces. They're really fuzzy. They're really floofy. And they have really soft fur. It doesn't even feel... It feels like what I imagine a cloud would feel like in real life, except not cold and wet, because clouds are cold and wet. No. Lovely. The loveliest. That's my cat Reno. Aw, that's adorable. Congratulations on Reno being the best of the kitties. Except for my cats, who we know are the best. No, I'm joking. But yes, I love a Balinese cat. There's a customer of mine that has a Balinese cat that just pretty much lives outside, but is really friendly and will always let me pet her, and it's adorable. And they need to order more because I don't get to pet that cat nearly enough. It's so adorable. Let me pet your cats 2024. That's my wish. That's what I want. I want to pet everyone's cats. Anyway, we're going to adjourn to the Discord. I hope to see you guys here next week for the start of Book 4, 8 p.m. Central on Tuesday. And we're going to finish, I think, Death's Door tonight. If I can get that last part down. Thank you all for coming, and I hope you have a good night. I can pet it. Okay, and we're done.